The whisper hit me like a bolt of lightning. My boss leaned close in the crowded office hallway, her face pale and serious, and quietly asked, "Do you remember last night?" In that instant, my stomach dropped. My mind raced. Last night was a blur of exhaustion, rain-soaked streets, and a company charity event I had barely attended before leaving early. Whatever she was talking about, the look in her eyes told me it was important. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, hope, forgiveness, compassion, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories. My name is Jacob Turner, and at 34 years old, I worked as a project manager for a software company in Chicago, Illinois. My boss, Rachel Collins, was known throughout the company for being professional, confident, and almost impossible to read. She was respected by everyone, including me. The previous year had been one of the hardest of my life. My father had passed away after a long illness, and the medical bills had drained nearly all of my savings. I was working long hours just to stay afloat. Most days I moved through life on autopilot. The company had hosted a fundraising gala for a local community center. I attended only because everyone was expected to show up. After making a small donation, I slipped out early and headed home through a heavy rainstorm. As Rachel stared at me that morning, I searched my memory, but found nothing unusual. She finally explained. The night before, after leaving the event, I had stopped under a bridge where several people were taking shelter from the rain. One elderly man had been struggling to keep a soaked blanket wrapped around himself while protecting a small cardboard box. At first, I only vaguely remembered the scene. Then, the memories started returning. The man had looked exhausted and cold. Without thinking much about it, I had handed him my umbrella and the extra cash I had withdrawn earlier that day. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was money I could barely afford to give away. I remembered kneeling beside him and helping move the box out of the water. Inside had been dozens of old photographs. That was all, or so I thought. Rachel's eyes filled with emotion as she told me there was more. The elderly man was her father. For a moment, I thought she must be mistaken. Rachel came from a wealthy family. Her father had once owned several successful businesses. Years earlier, however, a series of poor decisions and personal tragedies had shattered their relationship. Pride had kept them apart. Neither had reached out for years. Unknown to almost everyone, he had fallen on difficult times. Rachel had spent months searching for him, after learning he was living alone and refusing help. The man I had met beneath that bridge was the person she had been desperately trying to find. When I handed him my umbrella, helped protect those photographs, he had noticed the company logo on my jacket. During their emotional reunion later that night, he told her about a young stranger who treated him with dignity when nobody else stopped. That stranger was me. The days that followed felt unreal. Rachel wasn't thanking me because I had found her father. She was thanking me because my small act of kindness had convinced him that not everyone had forgotten him. For the first time in years, he agreed to reconnect with his daughter. Yet the story affected me even more deeply than it affected her. A week later, Rachel invited me to visit her father, whose name was Michael Collins. He was staying comfortably at a rehabilitation center while rebuilding his life. When I arrived, he greeted me with a smile that seemed to carry years of hardship and wisdom. As we talked, he shared stories about mistakes, regrets, and lost opportunities. But he also spoke about forgiveness. He told me that people often believe success is measured by money, titles, or achievements. Yet during his lowest moment, the thing that mattered most was not a fortune or a business. It was a stranger who stopped walking long enough to care. His words stayed with me. For months, I had been carrying my own grief. I blamed myself for not doing more for my father before he died. I replayed old conversations and unfinished moments. Michael helped me understand something I had never fully accepted. Love is not measured by perfection. It is measured by presence. Little by little, I stopped punishing myself for things I could no longer change. Meanwhile, Rachel and her father continued rebuilding their relationship. It wasn't instant. There were difficult conversations and painful memories, But there was also healing. One snowy afternoon nearly a year later, Rachel invited several employees to a holiday gathering. When I arrived, I saw Michael standing beside her, laughing as they decorated a Christmas tree together. The sight nearly brought tears to my eyes. A family that had once been broken was finding its way back together, and somehow, a simple decision to stop in the rain had played a small part in that miracle. Before I share the ending, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment when one small act of kindness changed someone's life or your own? Leave your answer in the comments below. As the evening came to an end, Michael pulled me aside. His voice was calm and sincere. He told me that on the night we met, he had been close to giving up hope that anyone still cared about him. Not hope for life itself, but hope that he still mattered to someone. Then, a stranger stopped. A stranger listened. A stranger helped. And because of that moment, he found the courage to answer his daughter's call. As I drove home through the falling snow, I realized something beautiful. Most people never know the impact of their kindness. A smile, a helping hand, a few minutes of compassion, these things may seem small to us, but to someone else, they can become the turning point of an entire story. If this story touched your heart, please support the video with a like, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Your support helps these messages of hope reach more people. And remember, you may never know whose life you're changing when you choose kindness. Sometimes, the smallest act of compassion becomes the beginning of someone else's miracle.